My name is Charlotte Bennett, and I'm about to tell you how a single text message led me to buy an entire resort just to prove my family wrong. But let me back up a bit. At 34, I've learned that success comes in many forms. And sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who see you least clearly. That's exactly what happened on a Tuesday afternoon in June when everything changed. I was sitting in my small apartment office, surrounded by scattered jewelry prototypes and shipping boxes, when my phone buzzed. The message was from Mom, and it hit me like a punch to the stomach. "You're not allowed at our vacation home this summer." Family decision. Mom. I stared at the screen, reading those words over and over. My hands started shaking slightly as I set the phone down on my cluttered desk. 20 years. 20 years of family vacations at Sunset Cove Resort. And now I was being cut out like some kind of criminal. Around me, my jewelry business hummed with quiet success. Silver chains caught the afternoon light, and tiny gemstones sparkled from their organized trays. The irony wasn't lost on me. While my sister Vivian had married rich and lived off her trust fund, I built something real from nothing. Yet somehow, I was the family disappointment. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mom. Vivian and Theodore need space for their children. The villa only has 4 bedrooms. I actually laughed out loud at that one. 4 bedrooms? I'd helped my grandmother count the rooms in that villa when I was 14 years old. There were 6 bedrooms, and I knew it because I dreamed about bringing my own family there someday. Before I could even process that lie, another message popped up, this time from my sister Vivian. "Nothing personal, Char. We just need a real vacation without any complications." Complications. That's what they called me now. That's what my family had decided I was after my divorce 2 years ago. After I'd chosen to start my own business instead of working for Dad's boring accounting firm. After I decided to live my life instead of playing the perfect daughter role they'd written for me. My office door flew open, and Elena Rodriguez burst in, carrying an armload of shipping boxes. She's been my best friend since college, and my business partner for the past 3 years. "The latest batch sold out in 3 hours," she announced, her dark eyes sparkling with excitement. "We need to talk about scaling up production, because I think we're about to..." She stopped mid-sentence when she saw my face. What happened? I couldn't speak. I just handed her my phone. Elena's expression darkened as she read the messages. She's always been protective of me, especially since my divorce from David. She was the one who held me while I cried after finding out about his affairs, and she was the one who convinced me to start this jewelry business when I felt like my life was falling apart. "It can't be serious," she said, her voice flat with disbelief. "Dead serious." My voice sounded steadier than I felt, but my hands were still trembling. 20 years of family vacations. 20 years of me organizing the activities, booking the restaurants, making sure everyone had the perfect time. And now I'm a complication they need to avoid. Elena sat down in the chair across from my desk, still holding my phone like it might bite her. "You know what? Maybe it's time you had a real vacation. Without them." I looked out my window at the busy street below. My business was doing better than I'd ever imagined possible. What had started as a way to keep my hands busy after my divorce had grown into something incredible. The handmade jewelry line was bringing in 6 figures annually, and I'd been quietly investing the profits in ways that would have shocked my family if they'd bothered to ask. But they never asked. They assumed I was scraping by, playing with pretty stones while the real adults handled important things. "You're right," I said slowly, feeling something shift inside me. "I'm going to Sunset Cove." But they said I couldn't stay at the family villa. They didn't say I couldn't go to the resort. For the first time in hours, I felt myself smile. It was a small smile, but it was real. I pulled up the Sunset Cove Resort website on my laptop and clicked Book Now. The familiar images of the Mediterranean-style buildings and pristine beach filled my screen. But this time, I wasn't looking at them through the lens of family obligation. If my family wanted to exclude me, I'd make my own vacation. What they didn't know was that I'd been saving money for years, building my business, making smart investments. My bank account could handle a lot more than they realized. As I scrolled through the available rooms, I found myself clicking on something I'd never been able to afford before. The Ocean View Suite. It was expensive, luxurious, and exactly what I deserved after years of cramming into whatever leftover space the family villa had to offer. I entered my credit card information with steady fingers, feeling more confident with each keystroke. The reservation confirmation appeared on my screen, and I stared at it for a moment. I just booked a premium suite at the resort where my family was planning their perfect vacation without complications. "What are you thinking?" Elena asked, watching me with curious eyes. I closed my laptop and looked at her. "I'm thinking it's time they learned what a real complication looks like." Elena grinned. I love it when you get that look in your eyes.
What look?
The same look you had when you decided to start this business. The look that says you're about to prove everyone wrong. I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the city I'd learned to navigate on my own terms. Somewhere out there was a coastal resort where my family was planning to relax and bond without me. They had no idea that their complication was about to become their neighbor. And they definitely had no idea what else I was capable of. As I picked up my phone to start planning my trip, I had no clue that this single act of defiance would change everything. I had no idea that by the end of the month, I'd owned the very place they'd banned me from. I had no idea that their decision to exclude me would lead to the most empowering moment of my life. All I knew was that I was tired of being treated like I didn't matter, and I was about to show them exactly how much I did. The drive to Sunset Cove took me through winding coastal roads I'd traveled since I was 14 years old. Every curve brought back memories that felt different now. Family sing-alongs where I was always told to sing quieter. Dad's rare moments of laughter that never seemed directed at me. And Grandma's stories about buying the villa back when the resort was just getting started. But this time felt completely different. Instead of the familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach about managing everyone else's needs and expectations, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: pure freedom. As I rounded the final curve, Sunset Cove Resort spread out before me like a postcard. The Mediterranean-style buildings cascaded down the hillside toward the pristine beach. Their red tile roofs gleaming in the afternoon sun, everything looked exactly as I remembered, yet somehow more beautiful through my new eyes. The family villa sat prominently on the highest point, its wraparound deck visible from the main entrance. I could see tiny figures moving around the pool area, my family already settled into their perfect vacation without me. I pulled into the resort's main parking area and grabbed my suitcase from the trunk. My hands were steady now, my decision clear. I was here to have the vacation I deserved, not the scraps my family had always left me. "Welcome to Sunset Cove Resort," the young man at the front desk said with a genuine smile. His name tag read David, and he looked like he actually enjoyed his job. "Checking in?" "Yes, Charlotte Bennett. I have a reservation for the Ocean View Suite." David's eyes lit up. "Ah, the Ocean View Suite. You're going to love it. First time staying with us?" I almost said yes, then caught myself. "First time staying anywhere but the family villa up there." I gestured toward the hill. David followed my gaze and nodded knowingly. Villa families sometimes need a change of pace. You'll love the suite, much better service than the private villas, if you ask me. And the view is incredible. A bellhop helped me with my bags, and as we walked through the resort, I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before. The lobby was elegant, but felt a bit tired around the edges. The restaurants I remembered being packed were only half full, even though this was peak season. The activities center looked like it hadn't been updated in years. My suite was on the 3rd floor, and when David opened the door, I gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean, and a private balcony stretched across the entire width of the room. The space was twice the size of my apartment back home, with a sitting area, a king-size bed, and a bathroom that looked like something from a luxury magazine. "This is incredible," I said, walking straight to the windows. "The sunset views are amazing from here," David said as he set my bags down. "And you have access to all the resort amenities: pool, spa, restaurants, beach service. Is this your first time as a resort guest rather than a villa guest?" "It is. You'll find the experience quite different. More personalized service, daily housekeeping, concierge assistance. The villa guests sometimes don't realize what they're missing." After David left, I unpacked my clothes and changed into a sundress. As I hung up my things in the spacious closet, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Hope you're not planning to cause drama. We're here for a peaceful family vacation." I stared at the message, feeling that familiar mix of hurt and anger. Even now, even after excluding me, she was making me the villain in their story. I decided to take a walk around the grounds before responding. The late afternoon sun was perfect, and I wanted to see the resort through my new perspective as a paying guest rather than a tolerated family member. The place was beautiful, but as I walked, I started noticing things that concerned me. I overheard fragments of conversations that made me pause. Heard they might be selling the whole place? Not the same since the renovations stopped. Shame used to be the best resort on the coast. Staff is great, but they seem overwhelmed. I found myself at the resort's main bar as the sun began to set. The space was elegant with dark wood and soft lighting, but it was nearly empty except for one woman sitting alone, nursing a glass of wine. She looked to be in her late 60s, well-dressed, with kind eyes that seemed to hold a lot of stories. "Mind if I join you?" I asked. I could use some company. She looked up with a warm smile. "Please do. I'm Dorothy, but everyone calls me Dottie. You look like you could use a friend." "Charlotte." "And you're absolutely right. Dottie had been coming to Sunset Cove for 30 years. She told me over the next hour, she'd watched it evolve from a small family-run operation to a corporate-owned resort that had somehow lost its soul along the way. The current owners are bleeding money," she explained, swirling her wine thoughtfully. "They made all the wrong choices when they bought it 5 years ago. Raised prices while cutting services, eliminated popular programs, reduced staff. The people who work here are wonderful, but they're understaffed and overworked." I looked around the beautiful but nearly empty bar with new eyes. What would it take to save a place like this? Dottie laughed, but there was sadness in it. "A miracle, or about $15 million, and someone who actually cares about this place more than profit margins." My mind started racing. My business had been more successful than I'd told anyone, even Elena. The jewelry line was just the beginning. I'd been quietly investing in real estate and stocks for years, following Dad's early lessons about building wealth. My portfolio was worth more than my family could imagine. "Excuse me," I said to Dottie. "I need to make a phone call." I walked out to the resort's garden area and dialed Richard Morrison, my financial advisor. He'd been managing my investments for 3 years and had watched my net worth grow from comfortable to genuinely impressive. "Richard, it's Charlotte. I need you to run some numbers for me." "Of course. What are you looking at?" "Hypothetically, if I wanted to make a major purchase, say $15 million, what would my liquidity look like?" There was a pause. "Charlotte, that's a very large purchase. May I ask what you're considering?" "A resort. This resort, actually. I'm at Sunset Cove right now, and it might be for sale." "I see. Oh, between your business earnings, your investment portfolio, and the real estate holdings we've built up, you could certainly handle that size transaction. Your net worth is approaching $20 million at this point." $20 million. I sat down on a garden bench, stunned. I'd known I was doing well, but hearing the number out loud made it real in a way it had never been before. "Charlotte? Are you there?" "I'm here." "Richard, I need you to do some research for me. Find out everything you can about Sunset Cove Resort. Ownership, financial situation, whether it's actually for sale. I'll get right on it." "Charlotte, this is a big step. Are you sure about this?" I looked up at the villa on the hill, where I could see my family's silhouettes moving around the deck. They were having their perfect vacation without their complication of a daughter and sister. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. After I hung up, I walked back toward my suite, but I couldn't resist taking the path that led closer to the family villa. I could hear their voices carrying on the evening air. Laughter, clinking glasses, the sound of people who belonged together. Mom's voice drifted down. "It's so peaceful without all the drama." Vivian's laugh. "I know, we should have done this years ago." I stood there in the gathering darkness, listening to my family celebrate my absence. But instead of the crushing pain I expected to feel, something else rose up in me, something that felt like power. They had no idea what their dramatic daughter was capable of. They had no idea that while they'd been dismissing me as a failure, I'd been building something extraordinary. As I walked back to my luxury suite, I smiled. Tomorrow, I was going to start asking serious questions about buying this place. Let's see how peaceful their vacation would be when they found out their biggest complication owned their entire playground. I woke up before dawn, my mind buzzing with ideas I couldn't shake. Sleep had been impossible after my conversation with Richard. $20 million. The number kept spinning through my head like a mantra. I'd spent the night researching Sunset Cove Resort on my laptop, and what I found was both heartbreaking and exciting. The resort was indeed for sale. The current owners, a corporate chain called Prestige Properties, had bought it 5 years ago and slowly stripped away everything that made it special. They'd cut the staff by 30%, eliminated the popular kids programs, removed the evening entertainment, and raised prices to try to make up for declining bookings. The reviews online told the whole sad story. Guests complaining about poor service, outdated facilities, and the loss of the family magic that had once made Sunset Cove special. The asking price was $12 million. I called Elena at 6 in the morning, knowing she'd be up getting ready for her morning run. "Please tell me you're not planning to buy a timeshare," she said without even saying hello. "I'm thinking bigger than that." "How much bigger?" "I'm going to buy the resort." Silence. Complete silence for almost 10 seconds. "Charlotte, I'm sorry. Did you just say you're going to buy an entire resort?" "The numbers work, Elena. My investments have been doing better than I told you. Way better. The jewelry business is just the tip of the iceberg. I've been putting money into real estate and stocks for years, following everything Dad taught me about building wealth." "But Charlotte, a resort? That's not exactly like buying a new car." "I know it's crazy, but Elena, this place is special. It's been dying under corporate ownership. The staff still cares. The location is perfect. The bones are good. It just needs someone who understands what it used to be." Elena was quiet for a moment. "This is about your family, isn't it?" "Maybe, but it's also about something bigger. This place gave me some of my happiest childhood memories. I can't let it die just because some corporation doesn't understand its value." After hanging up, I got dressed and headed to the resort's business center. I needed to research everything: property records, financial statements, local zoning laws. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. 3 hours later, I was surrounded by printed documents and had filled 2 legal pads with notes when someone cleared their throat behind me. "Mrs. Bennett? I heard you were asking about the resort's history." I turned to see a tall man with graying temples and kind eyes. His name tag read Marcus Sterling, resort manager. "I'm just curious about the place," I said carefully. "I've been coming here since I was a child." Marcus's face softened. "It's not the same place, is it?" "The corporate owners," he shook his head sadly. "They don't understand what made this place special. What would make it special again?" Marcus looked around to make sure we were alone, then sat down across from me. "Investment. Care. Someone who understands that a resort isn't just about profit margins. It's about creating memories." He paused, studying my face. "Why do you ask?" I made a decision to trust him. "Because I'm thinking about buying it." His eyes went wide. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. But I need to know what I'd be getting into." For the next 2 hours, Marcus walked me through everything: the staffing challenges, the deferred maintenance, the guest complaints, the competition from newer resorts down the coast. But he also shared his vision for what Sunset Cove could become again. "We used to have family game nights on the beach," he said, his eyes lighting up. "Children's treasure hunts, cooking classes, live music every evening. The guests felt like they were part of something special, not just customers paying for a room." What happened to all of that? Budget cuts. The new owners said those programs didn't generate direct revenue, so they eliminated them. But they didn't understand that those programs were what made people come back year after year, what made them recommend us to their friends. Marcus leaned forward. "Mrs. Bennett, if you're serious about this, I need you to know the staff would follow you to the ends of the earth if you brought this place back to life. We've all been waiting for someone who actually cares." That afternoon, I decided to have lunch at the resort's main restaurant. I chose a table on the terrace with a clear view of the family villa, where I could see my family enjoying their pool time without me. Vivian spotted me first. I watched her grab Mom's arm and point in my direction. Within minutes, my phone was ringing. "Charlotte, what are you doing here?" Mom's voice was sharp with irritation. "Having lunch, Mom. At the resort, where I'm staying." "You're staying at the resort? I thought you'd go home after getting my message. Your message said I couldn't stay at the villa. It didn't say I couldn't vacation at Sunset Cove. I could practically hear her grinding her teeth. This is ridiculous. You're being childish. I watched Mom pacing on the villa's deck, phone pressed to her ear. I'm being an adult who can afford her own vacation. We need to talk. Come to the villa tonight for dinner. I don't think so, Mom. I'm having dinner with some new friends. It wasn't entirely a lie. Dottie had invited me to join a group of longtime guests for dinner. People who'd been coming to Sunset Cove for decades and had watched its slow decline. What new friends? Charlotte, you've been there for one day. Amazing how easy it is to make friends when you're not constantly managing family drama. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, I found myself at a large table with 6 other guests, all with stories about what the resort used to mean to them. There was Frank, who'd been coming with his wife for 25 years until she passed away last year. Mary and John, who'd brought their children here every summer and were now bringing their grandchildren. Sarah, a teacher who saved all year to afford 1 week at Sunset Cove. It breaks my heart, Frank said quietly. My wife and I came here for our anniversary every year. She passed last year, and I came this time to say goodbye to the place we loved. But it's not the same place anymore. I felt tears prick my eyes. This wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about preserving something beautiful for everyone who'd found magic here. What would you want to see if someone could bring it back? I asked. The evening concerts on the beach, Mary said immediately. Better food in the restaurants, John added. It used to be incredible. Activities for families, Sarah said. Things that brought people together instead of keeping them in their rooms watching TV. After dinner, I walked alone on the beach. The villa was lit up above me, and I could see my family on the deck, laughing and drinking wine without a care in the world. They looked so happy without me. I pulled out my phone and called Richard again. Richard, it's Charlotte. I've made a decision. I want to make an offer on Sunset Cove Resort. Full asking price, cash. Are you certain about this, Charlotte? This is a major life change. I looked up at the villa one more time, then turned my back on it and faced the ocean. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. All right then, I'll contact their representatives first thing in the morning. As I walked back to my suite, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pure excitement about the future. Tomorrow I would begin the process of buying the place where my family had just rejected me. And they had absolutely no idea what was coming. I barely slept that night. My mind kept racing with plans, possibilities, and the sheer magnitude of what I was about to do. By morning, I had a team assembled, Richard handling the financial aspects, a resort consultant Elena had found through her business contacts, and a lawyer who specialized in hospitality acquisitions. The corporate offices of Prestige Properties were 2 hours away in the city. I drove there in my practical Honda sedan, passing BMWs and Mercedes in the parking lot. I deliberately dressed simply, a navy blazer and black slacks that could have belonged to any middle manager. I wanted them to underestimate me, at least at first. The receptionist looked confused when I announced I was there about purchasing Sunset Cove Resort. Are you representing a buyer? The young woman asked, looking me up and down. I am the buyer. 20 minutes later, I sat across from James Patterson, Prestige Properties Regional Director. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with an expensive suit and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Ms. Bennett, I appreciate your interest, but Sunset Cove is a significant investment. We're looking for serious buyers with proven track records in the hospitality industry. I slid a folder across his glass desk. My financial statements and proof of funds. I'm prepared to offer the full asking price of $12 million, cash. Patterson's smug expression faltered as he opened the folder. His eyes widened as he scanned the bank statements and investment summaries. I watched him do the math, realizing that the woman sitting across from him wasn't some dreamer with big ideas and empty pockets. This is quite impressive, he said slowly. But may I ask what your experience is with resort management? I've been visiting Sunset Cove for 20 years. I know every inch of that property, every staff member who's been there more than a few months, and every guest complaint from the past 5 years. I know what made it special and what's killing it now. And what's that? I leaned forward, corporate ownership that treats guests like numbers on a spreadsheet instead of people creating memories. Patterson's smile became more forced. The hospitality industry is more complex than you might think, Miss Bennett. There are regulatory requirements, staffing challenges, marketing considerations, seasonal fluctuations. I own and operate a successful business. I understand profit and loss statements, employee management, and customer service. What I don't understand is why anyone would want to destroy something beautiful for short-term profit. For the next hour, Patterson tried every angle to discourage me. He talked about the challenges of running a resort, the seasonal nature of the business, the competition from newer properties. But I'd done my homework. I knew the local market, the demographics, the opportunities he was missing. Your occupancy rates have dropped 30% since you bought the property, I said, pulling out my own research. Guest satisfaction scores are at an all-time low. You've eliminated the programs and services that made people want to come back. You're not just losing money, you're killing a legacy. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. We've implemented cost-saving measures to improve profitability. You've implemented cost-cutting measures that are destroying profitability. There's a difference. When I finally left his office, Patterson had promised to present my offer to the board within 48 hours. His parting words were that they'd be in touch, but I could tell he was taking me seriously now. The drive back to Sunset Cove felt different. Every mile brought me closer to either the biggest risk of my life or the most amazing opportunity I'd ever had. Maybe both. I found Marcus at the front desk, looking stressed as he dealt with a guest complaint about the broken elevator in the north building. "Mrs. Bennett," he said after resolving the issue, "how did your meeting go?" I made an offer, full asking price, cash. His face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? When will you know?" 2 days. Marcus glanced around to make sure no other guests were listening, then leaned closer. "Can I ask you something? If you buy this place, what happens to the staff? I mean, will you be keeping everyone on?" The worry in his voice broke my heart. These people had been watching their workplace slowly die, never knowing if they'd have jobs from 1 month to the next. "Marcus, everyone who wants to stay gets to stay. But there will be changes. Big ones. We're gonna remember what this place used to be, and we're gonna make it even better." That afternoon, I got an unexpected visitor. I was sitting on my suite's balcony, reviewing renovation ideas on my laptop, when someone knocked on the door. I opened it to find Vivian standing in the hallway, looking uncomfortable and slightly embarrassed. "Charlotte, we need to talk." "About what?" "About whatever game you're playing. Mom is having anxiety attacks, and Theodore thinks you're having some kind of breakdown." I stepped aside to let her in. Vivian looked around my suite with barely hidden envy, the ocean view, the spacious sitting area, the luxury furnishings. "Nice room," she said. "Must be expensive." "I can afford it." That's what I wanted to talk about. Vivian sat down on the white leather sofa. "Charlotte, I know you're doing well with your little jewelry business, but you're not. You don't need to pretend to be something you're not just to spite us." "What do you think I'm pretending to be?" Vivian sighed. "Look, I'm sorry about the villa situation, but you have to understand. Theodore's been under enormous pressure at work, and the kids really needed this family time. It wasn't personal." "Everything is personal, Vivian. You chose Theodore's comfort over your own sister." "That's not fair. You know, Mom has strong feelings about divorce. And after what happened with David cheated on me with 3 different women, Vivian. I didn't do anything wrong, except refuse to stay married to a man who didn't respect me. I know that, but you know how Mom is about family image. She thinks I'm an embarrassment. You all do. The divorced daughter who makes jewelry instead of having a real career. The one who doesn't fit into your perfect family picture." Vivian was quiet for a moment, looking out at the ocean. "You're not an embarrassment, Charlotte. You're just different." "Different how?" "You've always wanted more than what we had. Even as kids, you were never satisfied with just being part of the family. You always wanted to be special, to stand out." I felt that familiar ache of being misunderstood. I wanted to be myself. "Vivian, there's a difference." "And now? What do you want now?" I looked out the window at the resort grounds, at the staff working hard to maintain a place their corporate owners were slowly destroying, at the families trying to create memories despite the declining service. I want to build something beautiful. Something that lasts. After Vivian left, looking more confused than when she'd arrived, I took a long walk on the beach. The sunset was incredible, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I passed families building sandcastles, couples walking hand in hand, children playing in the gentle waves. This was what Sunset Cove was really about. Not profit margins or cost-cutting measures, but moments like these. Memories being made, lives being touched by beauty and peace. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Whatever you decide, I support you. But please tell me you're not doing this just to prove something to your family. I typed back, I'm doing this to prove something to myself. That night, I had dinner with Dottie and the Sunset Cove Survivors Club again. They were excited about my potential purchase, full of ideas about what the resort could become. It needs to feel like home, Frank said. That's what made this place special. It felt like coming home to family. But family that actually wanted you there, I added quietly. Dottie reached over and squeezed my hand. Sometimes the family we choose is better than the family we're born with, dear. As I walked back to my suite that night, I passed the villa on the hill. The lights were on, and I could see my family's silhouettes moving around inside. They were probably discussing my strange behavior, wondering what had gotten into their problem child. Tomorrow, I might have an answer to their offer. Tomorrow, I might become the owner of the place where they were enjoying their perfect vacation without me. The irony was delicious. They'd excluded me from their family vacation, so I was going to buy the entire vacation. The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was already awake, sitting in the resort's business center, with my laptop open, sketching out renovation plans I'd been dreaming about all night. Ms. Bennett, this is James Patterson from Prestige Properties. I have good news. My heart started pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it through the phone. They accepted? They did. The board was impressed with your offer and your determination. Congratulations, you're now the owner of Sunset Cove Resort. The words didn't feel real. I'd spent 34 years being told I wasn't enough, not successful enough, not traditional enough, not worthy enough. And now I owned the place where my family had just banned me from visiting. There is one small detail we need to discuss, Patterson continued. The sale includes all current bookings and reservations through the end of the summer season. That means the private villa rentals and their access agreements transfer to you as well. My mind started spinning. What does that mean exactly? It means you're now the person who controls access to all the villas on the property, including Villa 7, where I believe your family is currently staying. After I hung up, I sat in complete silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. I owned the villa that my family had kicked me out of. I owned the entire resort where they were having their perfect vacation without me. My phone rang again. This time, it was Marcus. Charlotte, I just got a call from the corporate office. Please tell me it's true. It's true, Marcus. I own Sunset Cove Resort. I heard him take a shaky breath. I can't believe it. The staff is going to be so excited. When do you want to start making changes? Immediately. But Marcus, I need you to do something for me first. I need you to deactivate all the access cards for Villa 7. There was a long pause. Villa 7? But that's where your family is staying? I know. Charlotte, are you absolutely sure about this? I thought about Mom's text message. About 20 years of being made to feel like I didn't belong. About Vivian's casual dismissal of my feelings. I'm sure. Give them until normal checkout time tomorrow morning. Then the cards stop working. And if they want to extend their stay, then they'll have to ask me. Personally. I spent the rest of that day in meetings with Marcus and the department heads, discussing immediate improvements. We increased staff wages, restored the evening entertainment program, and began planning the renovations that would bring Sunset Cove back to its former glory. But my mind kept drifting to Villa 7, where my family was enjoying what they thought was their last day of peaceful vacation, without their complicated daughter. The next morning, I was having coffee on my suite's balcony, when my phone started exploding with calls. First Mom, then Vivian, then Theodore, then Dad. I let them all go to voicemail while I watched the sunrise paint the ocean in brilliant colors. Finally, I listened to the messages. Mom's voice was sharp with panic. Charlotte, there's some kind of mistake with our villa cards. They're not working. Call me immediately. Vivian sounded confused and scared. Charlotte, I don't know what's happening, but our keycard stopped working, and the front desk says there's been some kind of ownership change. Mom is freaking out. Theodore was angry. This is ridiculous, Charlotte. Whatever game you're playing, it needs to stop. We have legal rights as paying guests. Dad's message was the calmest. Charlotte, sweetheart, I'm not sure what's going on, but we seem to be locked out of the villa. Can you help us figure this out? I finished my coffee, got dressed, and made my way to the resort's main lobby. I found my family clustered around the front desk, looking exactly as I'd expected, confused, frustrated, and increasingly panicked. Margaret spotted me first. Charlotte? Thank goodness you're here. There's been some terrible mistake with our villa. It's not a mistake, Mom. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment I'd been both dreading and anticipating since I'd made the offer. I mean, I own this resort now, as of yesterday morning, and I've decided that Villa 7 is no longer available to guests who don't appreciate family. The lobby went completely silent. Other guests had stopped their conversations to watch. Even Marcus, who was standing behind the front desk, looked nervous. Vivian's face went white. You bought the resort? I bought the resort. Theodore stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. This is insane. You can't just buy a resort. Do you have any idea what something like this costs? $12 million, cash. Dad's mouth fell open. Charlotte, what have you done? You can't afford this. You're going to bankrupt yourself. I'm going to bankrupt myself? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dad, I'm the one who's been building a business for the past 5 years. I'm the one who's been investing and saving and working 16-hour days while you all assumed I was playing with pretty stones. We never thought you were a failure, Mom said, tears starting in her eyes. You banned me from family vacation, Mom. You decided I wasn't worth including in your perfect family picture. You made a family decision without the family member who actually turned out to be the most successful. I gestured around the beautiful lobby. This is mine now. All of it. Every room, every restaurant, every sunset view you've been enjoying for the past week. I own it. But why? Vivian asked, her voice breaking. Why would you do this to us? I didn't do this to you, Vivian. I did this for me. Because I wanted to. Because I could. And because maybe it's time this family learned that the person you've been excluding and dismissing is actually the one with the power. Marcus was watching from behind the desk, clearly torn between professional discretion and personal loyalty to me. Charlotte, please, Dad said quietly. We can work this out. We can talk about this like family. Family? I looked at each of them in turn. You texted me that I wasn't allowed at our vacation home. You made a family decision that didn't include me. You decided I was a complication you needed to avoid. We made a mistake, Mom said, crying openly now. We can fix this. You're right, Mom. You did make a mistake. You forgot that the daughter you thought was a disappointment was actually listening to everything Dad taught me about money and success and building wealth. I turned to Marcus. Marcus, please prepare the paperwork for extending the Bennett family's stay. They'll be paying standard resort rates. Of course. Of course, Marcus said, fighting a smile. And Marcus? Make sure they understand that as resort guests, they're expected to follow all resort policies, including the one about treating staff and management with courtesy and respect. I looked at my family one last time. You have 1 hour to decide whether you want to check out and go home, or stay and follow the new rules. The villa cards will be reactivated if you choose to stay, as paying guests who treat the owner with the respect she deserves. As I turned to walk away, I heard Vivian call out, Charlotte, wait, how long have you been planning this? I paused and looked back at her. I wasn't planning anything. Vivian, I was just living my life, building my success, becoming the person I wanted to be. You all just chose not to notice. But when did you become so successful? The day I stopped trying to be who you wanted me to be and started being who I actually was. I walked toward the elevator, leaving my family standing in the lobby of the resort I now owned. Behind me, I could hear them talking in hushed, shocked voices, finally beginning to understand that their complication of a daughter had just turned their entire world upside down. The elevator doors closed, and I smiled for the first time in days. They'd wanted a peaceful vacation without me. Now they'd have to ask permission from me to stay. 3 hours later, I received a text from Dad. We'd like to extend our stay. All of us, we have a lot to talk about. I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling a mix of satisfaction and something I hadn't expected, hope. I forwarded the text to Marcus with instructions to reactivate the villa cards and prepare a proper welcome package, something they'd never received as family guests who just assumed they belonged there. The next few days passed like a whirlwind. I threw myself into resort operations, working alongside the staff to implement changes that had been needed for years. We extended the pool hours, brought back the children's treasure hunts, hired a live music coordinator for evening entertainment, and most importantly, I listened to what guests actually wanted. But the biggest change was in my relationship with my family. The first real conversation came that evening when Dad knocked on my suite door. He looked older than I remembered, maybe because for the first time I was seeing him as just a man, instead of the powerful figure from my childhood. I brought peace offerings, he said, holding up a bottle of wine and wearing the most sheepish smile I'd ever seen on his face. I let him in, and we sat on my balcony overlooking the resort that was now mine. I owe you several apologies, he began. Starting with the biggest one, I'm sorry I never saw who you really were. Dad, you don't have to. I do, Charlotte. I spent so many years worried about your mother's opinions and managing family drama that I forgot to pay attention to what you were actually accomplishing. I knew your business was doing well, but I had no idea how well. How could you? None of you ever asked. He nodded sadly. When did you become so successful? And why didn't you tell us? I thought about it carefully. I think it started when I realized that none of you really saw me, not the real me. So I stopped trying to be who you wanted me to be and started being who I actually was. And who is that? Someone who takes risks, someone who builds things, someone who doesn't give up when people underestimate her. Dad was quiet for a moment, staring out at the ocean. I taught you about money and investing, but I never taught you about courage. You learned that on your own. I learned it from Grandma, actually. She used to tell me that this place was special because it gave people permission to be their best selves. She said that's what made it worth investing in. Your grandmother would be incredibly proud of you right now. She always said you had the best business sense of anyone in the family. She said that often. We weren't listening. The conversation with Mom was much harder. She came to my suite the next morning with red, swollen eyes and a prepared speech that she clearly hadn't slept much thinking about. Charlotte, I know I've made terrible mistakes. I know I've been controlling and judgmental. I know I've favored Vivian, and I know that's hurt you deeply. We sat in the resort's garden, away from other guests who might overhear. Mom, I need to understand something. Why was it so important to keep me away from the villa? What were you really afraid of? Mom was quiet for a very long time, picking at the flowers in the garden bed next to our bench. Because you remind me of myself, she finally said. Before I married your father, I had dreams. I wanted to travel, to work in business, to build something of my own. Instead, I became a wife and mother and convinced myself that was enough. But it was enough, Mom. You raised 2 daughters. I raised one daughter to be dependent and one daughter to be independent. And I resented the independent one because she was living the life I was too scared to live myself. I felt tears starting in my eyes. Mom, when you got divorced, I was angry because you were brave enough to leave a bad marriage. When you started your business, I was dismissive because you were brave enough to take risks I never took. When you succeeded, I felt threatened because you were becoming everything I could have been but wasn't. You still could be those things. You're 58, not 98. Mom laughed through her tears. What would I even do at my age? Whatever you want. You're the resort owner's mother now. That comes with some privileges if you want them. The conversation with Vivian surprised me the most. She found me in the business center the next afternoon, surrounded by renovation plans and color samples. You're really going to restore this whole place, she said, looking at the architectural drawings spread across the table. I'm really going to make it better than it ever was. Charlotte, I'm impressed, and I'm sorry. I looked up from the fabric samples I'd been studying. Sorry for what? For never seeing who you really were. For thinking that because I married someone successful, that somehow made me more successful than you. For letting Mom make decisions about our family without considering how they'd affect you. Vivian, you don't need to apologize for. I do. Charlotte, I've been coasting through life for years. Living off Theodore's career, mom's approval, dad's financial support. You've been building something real while I've been existing. I set down the color swatches I'd been holding. What do you want to do about it now? I want to help. With the resort. I have a degree in hospitality management that I've never actually used. I have ideas about marketing, about special events, about family programming that could bring this place back to life. You want to work here? With me? I want to work with you, Charlotte. If you'll let me. If you think I can contribute something meaningful. I studied my sister's face, looking for signs that this was just another attempt to get something from me. But what I saw was genuine regret, and maybe for the first time in our lives, real respect. What about Theodore? The kids? Your life back home? Theodore thinks this is the best thing that could happen to me. He's been telling me for years that I needed to find my own purpose, my own identity. And the kids would love spending summers here, being part of something special. It would be real work, Vivian. Long hours, difficult decisions, no special treatment because you're my sister. I'm counting on it. 2 weeks later, I stood in the resort's main conference room, looking at the assembled staff. Marcus was there, along with all the department heads, and now Vivian, who'd officially joined as Director of Guest Services after proving herself during a busy weekend where she'd worked 18-hour days without complaint. I want to tell you about our vision for the new Sunset Cove, I began. We're going to restore this place to what it was always meant to be. A place where families come together, where memories are made, where people can discover their best selves. I outlined the renovation plans, the new programs, the expanded staff we'd be hiring. But most importantly, I talked about the culture we were going to create. This isn't just about occupancy rates or profit margins. This is about creating something beautiful and meaningful, something that honors the past while building toward an even better future. After the meeting, I walked out to the beach where I'd spent so many childhood summers. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I could see families playing in the sand, couples walking hand in hand, children building elaborate sandcastles with their grandparents. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "How's your empire building going, boss lady?" I typed back, "It's not an empire, it's home." And for the first time in my adult life, that's exactly what it felt like. 6 months later, Sunset Cove Resort was featured on the cover of Travel Cloth Leisure as America's best family resort comeback story. The article talked about our authentic family atmosphere and commitment to creating lasting memories across generations. I framed that magazine cover and hung it in my office, the same office where I'd once sat reading my family's rejection text, feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. But my favorite thing in the office was a candid photo Elena had taken during our grand reopening celebration. It showed me Mom, Dad, and Vivian standing together on the beach, all of us laughing at something Dad had said. We looked relaxed, happy, and most importantly, we looked like a real family. I kept that photo on my desk as a reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just being brave enough to show the world who you really are, and discovering that the people who matter most will love you for it. The family that once thought I was their biggest complication had become my greatest supporters, and the resort that had been my childhood escape had become the place where I finally found myself. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Where are you listening from? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tale, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support gives me the motivation to post more frequently.